Greetings, vampire. Today we're going to talk about names, about that power to change us, to affect us, to have us see who and what we are. For instance, should I refer to you as vampire, which has certain connotations? Should I call you Kuei-Jin, which has certain other connotations? Maybe simply Kuei-Jin of the West. But let's just stick with the quite universal and bland Kindred of the West. That should cover it. Now, why do I bring up names? It's because we're going to talk about the Dharmas today, and before the Dharmas were named, the world was terrible for the Kuei-Jin. We'd been cast out by heaven, cursed by them. The new Kuei-Jins were ones who had travelled to the world of hell and back, and that was what our state was in. We were nearly all just ravaging monsters, teeth, claws, biting, eating, getting chi from the flesh of humans and very quickly put down. Now there were a few of us, very few, who started upon certain dharmic paths, but it was all very ad hoc. Maybe you would feel the yang within you, try and make it yourself more alive and use this life to fight against your beast. But that would never get you very far. But then think of what we have now. Now we have the path of the thrashing dragon. Now you know that if you want to invoke your yang, you need to do certain things and live in certain ways and follow the example and the precepts of those who have been before you. We named the Dharma and we made it real. Actually, we didn't. Xu did, the great Arat Xu. He found the 5 main Dharmas, and he not only found them all, because probably there had been others before him, but he named them all and he passed it down, and it was written down, and there were masters and they had disciples, and they laid down the path that we could follow, and the Dharmas were there. What? You're wondering why these Dharmas are so important to the Kuei-Jin? Yes, you would actually, because the Kindred of the West's experience is somewhat the opposite. Very well. You start when you are embraced, close to humanity. You are still the human you once were to a large extent. Its smell is upon you. Its emotions are upon you. Its values are still upon you. And then there's a slow degradation over the centuries as all that you know and love dies again and again, as your great ideals come to naught, as there is nothing left in the night but survival. Slowly you degrade, and slowly the beast becomes more and more a part of you, and you are barely above it after all this time, just surviving with the last speck of humanity left within you. The Kuei-Jin are different. We start in that state. We start with humanity completely snuffed out, with the Po, the demon soul, going wild within us. Yes, we are feeders on flesh. We are monsters. We are unthinking beings. And if the paths, if the Dharmas were not in front of us, we would not be able to crawl our way back, to rise. For yes, you Kindred of the West, you start high, but you fall. And we start so low, but we rise. How? Well, the concept of Dharmas, you can find them in Buddhism, Hinduism. I can recommend a few books if you want. But just to summarize, it is seeing beyond the world, seeing beyond the illusion that is the world, and maybe rejoining the great cycle of reincarnation, maybe moving beyond it entirely. But it is transcending the demon, this creature of this world, by transcending the world itself. And there are various paths on how to do this, each aligned with different virtues. The virtues, the Han, the higher soul, the Po, the demon soul itself. Yes, you can transcend the demon through the demon. It's quite interesting. Yin, the passive principle of death. Yang, the aggressive power of life. All of these, and balance of all of these provide ways of transcending our condition. The easiest is the celestial cranes, the mighty cranes, the great ones, as they no doubt think of themselves. It's a very simple and obvious path. If you have been sent to hell, or if you have been cursed by heaven, obviously, this has denoted a lack of virtue in your life. So what is the best way of redeeming this? Well, by living a virtuous life. And of course, different cultures have different definitions of what virtue is. And the cranes, they're mainly based on the Chinese schools of Confucianism and legalism. Legalism rule by laws and by regulations and by perfections and by specific rules impartially enforced. And Confucianism rule by moral example, become a paragon of perfection in all that you do and all you're seen to do. The cranes are aligned with the Han, with the higher soul, the rational soul, so-called. And initially, at least, it is the easiest path by far, because there are certain rules. You keep your word, you are kind and compassionate, you show mercy to your subordinate, you show justice and violence to your subordinates, you are honorable in dealing with your enemies, you are effective in this. You basically have a lot of rules and a lot of codes of behavior, and if you follow them all, which is just a question of willpower, and yes, I know there are some with low willpower, but there's really no helping everyone, then just do it mindlessly and you will progress. And you will maybe become a great advisor, a great mandarin in the courts. And your wisdom will be known by all, and people will come from far and wide to hear what you have to say. But that will not be enough. That'll never be enough. As the next step, you have to lead. You have to taint your perfect soul with politics, and you have to make decisions, and you have to maintain the magnificent crane across that. That is where so many fall. So many wise advisors who are always giving the moral advice to the emperor, yes, show this compassion, that is what is required, suddenly find themselves as the emperor, as the decision maker, the ancestors as we call them, and then it's not quite so easy, because the choices are not as obvious as once they were. Now, would you commit an atrocity, putting your karmic path in danger, but safeguarding your family, your undead family, and maybe your entire nation? Do you? Do you not? Will you be drummed out from power and maybe killed if you don't make this decision? Will you waver on your path and fall down if you do? And in that tension, in the having to make those decisions and making them and not fleeing from them, you get the next step up. Those are the greatest and the most ferocious leaders, the cranes who have transcended the requirements of their early path. Well, at least that's the theory. I tend to find that they mainly do this through extreme applied hypocrisy, by just letting some people in their organization do the dirty work and not inquire too much about how it gets done. But that seems to suffice for this path, and they are, in the main, are glorious leaders. And I will not say a single negative word about the pompous, inbred, traditionalist old assholes. But now, I'll let you think upon this. I'll let you meditate upon this. For tomorrow we'll talk about a very different Dharma. A very different path. Not the higher soul, but the lower. The one that wants to rip out your eyes through your head and point them towards each other so that you can watch yourself die. But they have a certain wisdom as well. We'll speak tomorrow.